Phill Currie, Executive Director of the AUS, joining us. Phill, thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure to be here with you, gentlemen. How you doing?
We're doing great.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot for coming on. So the AUS is back, the return to sport. We had 1 year, kind of a little hiatus, obviously, with the global pandemic. Jake went to St. Mary's. I used to work at Dalhousie as a play-by-play and in-house announcer. Loved watching university games growing up. What can you tell us it's been like for you over the past year?
Well, it's been tough, obviously. We're in the business of making sport happen. And when you can't do that, it's troublesome for sure. And, really hard on our student athletes, as as former student athletes and around the environment is, they train hard, they train to compete. And when they can't compete, it's not only hard on them physically, they train a little bit harder probably. And the mental side of it is just the mental health piece. Oh my God, you're not doing something you love. I think that has a lot of effect.
Yeah. So with the obviously sports back this week, just how excited are you?
Well, we're pretty excited. There's a lot of buzz around the office here. Obviously, we have already had competition on the go, and as you guys know, football kicks off tonight, and we have other games going as well. And we're excited, just for our student athletes, just to see them compete. And in fact, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to St. FX in the middle of the pandemic to celebrate the coach there,
right,
Coach K, and for the first time in quite a number of months, I actually got to see student athletes compete. And when you're in that environment, when you've been away from it for so long, it's heartwarming, and it's heartwarming to see those student athletes out and competing. And it was then, and it's it is now. And we're just excited to be back, and that we have everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing around sport.
I got to ask you a follow-up on that event and what that event was like, because Phill, I told you I used to do the announcing at the Dal games. And obviously when you're doing the introductions, you announce how many years a coach has been coaching for. So I'm 24 years old. And so I would see that I'd have to announce that Coach K has been coaching for almost double the amount of time I've been on this earth. And I thought this guy was never going to retire. I mean, he's a great coach, great with the athletes. First of all, what's your relationship like with him, and what was that event like?
We've Coach K and I over the years have had a great relationship, and when we're hosting both our conference championships, we get to spend more time with them, obviously, and the national championships, up to a number of years ago. What can I say about Coach K? I mean, the dedication, what he's done for student athletes, not only on the court, but the stories you hear, what he does for them off the court. They're truly his kids when they're in his program. And that's how he sees it. He's like a father figure to them all. And I think Coach K would still be coaching. There's a time in your life when everything catches up to you and it's time to move on. And, I think Coach K will enjoy his time off, but he'll never be away from basketball, I don't think.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, Phill, obviously I kind of have a little bit of a clue of what your role is, but as Executive Director of Atlantic University Sports, what is your role? Like, what do you actually do there, and what does your department try to help facilitate for the student athletes to be able to go out there and play the sports that they love as student athletes?
That's a great question. And we want to be student athlete focused in everything we do. So every decision we make, and every time we communicate with athletic directors in reference to what we need to talk about conference wide, and really managing sport, university sport, student athletes are always paramount and at the front of our conversation. So that's important. But what we do is we market university sport. We bring partners to the table to allow us to grow and support our members more every year. And the more partners we can bring on, the more financial resources we have to do that. And, in building capacity, I guess, in terms of delivering sport in Atlantic Canada. We do a lot of work with the national body and with our colleague conferences across Canada in reference to anything from policy to field of play. pieces. So we have communications people here. We have people that look after member services, partner services, that type of thing, and our director of sport, here looks after kind of making sport happen, stats, and all those pieces. So they're the big pieces, and really just kind of keeping it all together, and no different than what you would see out of some of the big conferences in the U.S. We have 4 conferences here in Canada. We're one of them, and proud to be one.
Before we get into this year, which I'm super excited to get some information from you, I want to ask about last year, because over the past few weeks, I've learned that there was a lot more going on than I might have known. And I knew there was, team workouts or at home workouts and things of that nature. But what was going on with these teams? Because to my knowledge, if there was still some on-campus activity, there were some, home workouts given by the team coaches for the players to do. So it sounds like there was still some team stuff going on. The players just couldn't compete. Was that right?
No, that's correct, and really it had everything to do with the epidemiology at the time. What our the 4 respective provinces were allowing in their own in each individual province. Sorry, and we did have some policy that allowed exhibition competition if it was possible based on the epidemiology to move forward. So some student athletes in the conference had the opportunity to play and compete. And usually that window closed quickly when cases went up or whatever the case may be. But that did happen, and kudos to the coaches. That hard on the coaches too in terms of ensuring that they had 1, student athletes on campus, and 2, had activities that focused on their development. And I think that what that will prove to be is a real benefit coming into this season, certainly for the student athletes that were able to take part in those activities. I think our competition's going to be great, and really looking forward to getting out there and watching some of that competition.
Yeah, and Phil, I was just kind of wondering too, to kind of piggyback off of that, going into more so this season, what kind of protocols and stuff are going to be in place to make sure like we can keep the student athletes safe? Obviously, we know some of the COVID cases have been going up a little bit, but we're all super excited to have the university sport back, and just kind of wondering how we're going to make sure that these student athletes are safe and we get to keep going to these events and seeing this awesome product that we have here in Atlantic Canada.
The student safety is paramount, not only to Atlantic University Sport, but all of its members, and obviously, the senior administration at each of those institutions as well. And as you know, we've all come out with vaccine policies, double vaccinations, and provide some runway for student athletes to get double vaccinated. But that's really the policies that we have, and it's going to be driven. And I've talked with certainly in Nova Scotia here, our chief medical officer quite frequently, and we always finish our conversation with, or he finishes it for me with, Phil, remember, it's all based on the epidemiology at the time. So, we will continue to take the lead from the respective provinces. We do have a full return to play program that we're operating under, and that's coupled with the double vaccination policy that we have. Yeah.
So we've talked about the players and kind of what's expected of them and the double vaccination. How about the fan experience? Because Jacob and I were talking about earlier on the podcast before you came on, we had some friends that were at Husky Stadium last night for the soccer game. Heard it was a great atmosphere, really fun game to be around. I wish I was there for the game. What's the fan experience going to be like? Because I've seen some great fans for AUS events, and I hope we can see that again.
Well, in terms of the fan experience, ourselves with the championships, and I know that our members are going to do everything they can to make the fan experience, what it was prior to COVID. Obviously there's going to be some restrictions. There's gathering restrictions and how people are, I guess, situated in any of the venues. But I think that the fan experience itself will be second to none. And coupled with great competition on the respective playing surface. So, I don't think it's gonna look different, but I don't think it'll feel any different in terms of the fan experience.
Yeah, definitely. You just mentioned the look. Do you think there'll be any product difference between 2 years ago and this year with the middle of the year laid off? I know most of the athletes, like you said, well, not most of them, some of them have the chance to do at-home workouts and stuff like that. But do you expect the quality of the AUS to keep going in a direction that it was going before COVID, which was upwards in my opinion. I think the AUS over the last couple of years has got some awesome athletes across various sports. And I'm just kind of curious to think what you think is going to happen with the product coming back to play.
Well, Jake, I think we've got a little bit of an edge up over, like, if we compare ourselves to the rest of the country, because most of the country weren't able to compete at all, right? So we did get some competition, and I think that'll help us. And again, I think that, in terms of systems, we might, some programs might have to, work with their systems a little harder than because they weren't able to do a lot of systems work in the downtime. But these student athletes, as you know, they're solid, and we have quite a few returning student athletes, obviously, and with the seniors versus the recruits. I think it'll all balance out, and I think I'm not worried about the quality. I think we're going to be solid, and our coaches are focused on that, and so are our athletic departments.
Yeah, you speak about the edge that we've had, and I want to mention the AUS comparison to OUA and RSEQ and some of the Western divisions, because I just love the fact that being in the Maritimes here, I just feel like when we go to these big tournaments and we're going up against these big schools, Ryerson and those types of, U of T, it's like, yeah, this is the small school, St. Mary's or Acadia. And I feel like they're always the underdog role. I just think it's been such a pleasure to watch these teams kind of flourish and be that underdog and do so well. Like Jacob said, go in such a great direction. What have you seen? 'Cause I'm sure you're seeing the exact same thing as me, that some of these teams have gone to the national level and competed, not just doing well in our own Atlantic province and conference, but doing well at a national level against some of these huge schools.
Absolutely. I always like to say that in Atlantic Canada, regardless if it's a university sport or whatever we're doing out there in the world, that we always punch above our weight class. And I think that's the case with all of our programs. A majority of them, like we do punch above our weight class and never go in with the attitude of an underdog, but that we're there to compete at the same level as anybody else. So I think that when we get to national championships again, and hope that happens, and we don't have any major issues that prevent us from getting there. But I think you'll find that the Atlantic Canadian teams and right across the board will do well.
I know as an executive director, you probably can't say, what your favorite sport is to watch, but just out of curiosity, what are you excited? Like, what sport are you excited to come back? Because I know at different schools, different sports do well, obviously, different programs. Just what in general, maybe a sport that you're excited to come back and see and just be a part of, be at the games and just get into that atmosphere again?
Let's put it this way. When I came to Atlantic University Sport, I was a football guy, right? I mean, I came from the football world, played football, coached football, all those things. But I've become a fan just of university sport, to be honest with you. I mean, the swim championships, the track and field championships are outstanding. Obviously, I still enjoy football, going to the game tonight and going to participate in that and what have you. But women's volleyball, my God, just a great game to participate in and be a fan of. I mean, there's no real for me. It's about student athletes and getting all the student athletes out there and competing. And I can go to a swim championship and have a great time and enjoy it just as much as I can for a football game where I come from. So right across the board, they're all great. And I would encourage anybody that's listening or watching today that get out there and experience that for yourself. It's fantastic.
Well, we're looking forward to experiencing it. We're going to be covering the AUS on this podcast, Phill. We're kind of a new media company over the past 6 months. We started during the pandemic, so we couldn't do any interviews, really, any filming or anything like that. But we're going to be covering a lot of local sports here in the Maritimes, so looking forward to that as well. We just appreciate your time, and thanks a lot for coming on.
Well, listen, gents, I really appreciate it. Appreciate the time and your interest and what you're trying to do here. Congratulations, by the way, and getting the podcast off the ground. And here's to great growth and success.
Thanks a lot, Phill.
Thanks, Phill. Thanks for coming on.
Take care. My pleasure.